Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Santhosh Mahalingam, who is the co-founder of Mikro Grafeio, which enables local economies to thrive by creating employment opportunities. Hi Santosh, welcome to ELI.
Good evening. Thank you, Priranjan. I'm glad to be here and thank you for this opportunity.
A very good evening, Santosh. I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Sure. Thank you. So, my name is Santhosh Mahalingam. I've been in the banking industry for the last 27 years. I had a good career with multiple banks in multiple geographies in the last few years. And since last 18 months, I founded Mikro Grafeio. It has been an exciting journey along with my co-founders and team to create something different, which has a significant impact on the lives of people in Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns. And in the journey of the last 18 months, we've been able to help clients to set up their offices in 35 centers across 21 cities in India, and all of them in the small towns, thus generating employment for more than 1,000 people across the country so far. So that's a brief introduction about myself. Uh, Mikro Grafio Preranjan actually in Greek means small office. Mikro
Okay.
is a small Grafio's office. So we literally are into the business of creating small offices across the country in rural towns where we can help companies to come and set up their IT and other operations offices there and give local folks employment there itself, thereby eliminating the need for them to migrate back to the metros. That's what we're doing for.
Got you. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how it all started. What was the hypothesis? And I can see because after pandemic, a lot of people who are working in IT sector, they are working from home, and that means home can be anywhere, be it a rural place. And actually a lot of Indian people, Indian IT employees, they belong to rural places. They are not traveling back to metros, and they're working from home from a very remote rural place. Tell us how it all began. What was the hypothesis, and how it
Sure.
started.
So sure. So as you said, one of the triggers for this was the pandemic, and I was working in a large bank. I was heading their back office capability center in India, employing a large number of employees. And when I reflect back on that time, almost the entire set of employees working out of 120 cities in India during the pandemic. And that triggered a thought in us saying, distributed workforce model is something which is feasible, possible, and doesn't impact the productivity of people.
Mhm.
It broke the myth that we have to be in a central location in a big city for us to be able to work and collaborate together. And while it continued for a couple of years, we also had the thought that work from home probably is not the most productive way, not just from a collaboration and employee well-being point of view, but also from a data security point of view. So the founders converged on the entire model of working closer to home, as we call it. So we call it work from hometown rather than work from home. And we also realize that the scale at which we want to operate these in small towns is not as big as what it could be in the metros or cities. And we coined the entire concept of distributed workspace model, wherein we create smaller offices, what we call satellite offices in small towns, and encourage companies to have the employees work from those offices in the hometowns itself, then asking the employees to come back to the various Taiwan cities or metros.
Mhm.
By doing that, there are a couple of advantages which emerge. One, of course, is the cost angle. We know that the cost of infrastructure and resources are far more cheaper in the smaller towns. Number two is an angle of talent attraction and retention. Many of us in our life came from a small town and migrated to a larger city in search of employment. And I always reflect on my background as to if I had a good job, what I dreamt of in my hometown, I would have loved to be there along with my friends and family. There's an emotional and social impact in what we do here. So our objective was to retain talent in the hometowns, bring jobs to them towards closer to their home so they can be employed and be with their family and friends out there, and also in that way improve the quality of life And by generating more employment, it also means that the local economy is going to be in a far more better situation, with more income coming there and more spending out there. So we call ourselves as a kind of a social startup with the aim of generating employment opportunities in small towns. But at the same time, we want to be profitable. We're not an NGO, clearly. We want to be profitable at the same time.
Mhm.
And the whole hypothesis is such that uh, we work on a project model. So we work with our clients to identify the right location based on the skill sets required. We identify the work space and build it out for them. We help them to recruit the workforce and train them. And it's a kind of a build and transfer model. So we build the entire thing for them and transfer it to our client for them to operate. And post that, because it's a small town and there is no scale for them to deploy some of the support services, we also help them with the HR services, facility services, etc., so that they can focus on their core business. So that's what we are fundamentally in for. And in the last, year and couple of months since we went to the market, we are happy to say that we have supported more than 50 clients to set up their back office operations and IT centers, COEs in more than 21 cities across 35 centers so far. And we do have a good pipeline, which is very promising for the next few months as well.
Got you. Uh, when you shortlist different places to set up an office, what are the different criteria that you evaluate based? Is it the population or is it proximity to talent? I mean, what are the different factors that you consider?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So the first one foremost is talent availability. Okay, so because any client or company looks at talent availability and retention as a key point. So, for example, there's a tech company who wants to set up their center of excellence in Oracle or center of excellence in cloud support. We look at what are the kind of engineering talent available in those towns in the surrounding sectors, and we also look at a hub and spoke model, how we can develop the surrounding towns. We can do more centers out there. We also look at availability of lateral talent who are there, some experienced folks who have been working with other companies to support it. So that's a primary criteria. But we also look at is there a reasonable social infrastructure? So if somebody wants to move from, say, for example, a city like Chennai to Salem, for example, we look at whether there's a reasonable infrastructure in that sense to come in there. But the good part is with a lot of development in the last few years, that has not been wanting at least. So to a large extent, it is talent availability and the cost of operations what drives us to those towns.
Mhm.
And we have seen very encouraging, results with our research in terms of many other towns. It was unbelievable. We have found there are small towns which I've not heard in my life, probably having 35 engineering colleges surrounding them. Okay, and that's
Okay.
a talent who normally migrate back to cities to in search of work.
Mm.
So that was all realization for us also when we started the journey.
Tell us some names of the cities where you found there is a great
So,
possibility.
so we operate primarily in south of India as of now. We have not yet expanded to north or the west or the east. So we have our centers operating as deep as a city called Tirunelveli in south.
Mhm.
We have our centers in Trichy, Salem. We're opening up in Madurai. We have in Coimbatore. We have in Mysore. We are opening up in Hubli and Mangalore.
Mm.
In Kerala, we have in Trivandrum, Kochi, and Calicut, and obviously we have some offices in Bangalore and Chennai as well. In the near future, we are looking at Vishakhapatnam as well as Vijayawada to move ahead, and maybe in Maharashtra we look at Nagpur as well. So those are the kind of towns we want to go ahead in the next 1 year.
Got you. Uh, Now, would love to understand your entrepreneurial journey and tell us about, what motivated you to become entrepreneur or to switch from a career of banking to something that is, setting up office spaces for other companies.
So, well, it was, as I said, the after spending 27 years in the banking industry, obviously there's a big leap of faith which I took
Mm-hmm.
uh, along with my other co-founders. So my other co-founders are all well established in their career. A couple of them were in the travel industry, working with reputed names in Middle East. and the co-founder is from an HR background, and he's based in US. So we all were well settled, and but there was something in us we want to do something different. You've done enough in a corporate career and want to do something. And during the pandemic time, we were connecting and talking about multiple options of what we can do. And this opportunity struck us in terms of, yeah, this is a niche area which we are looking for and which we really wanted to work towards to. And clearly, we all were having a common vision. And all of us came from a similar background of migrating from a small town to a big city in search of jobs. So it resonated with us that we had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I took the plunge in 18 months back, resigning my job and starting this. And, for us, more than anything else, while obviously, as I said, making profits, etc., are important, there is this drive of a social impact which pushes us forward. The more jobs we try to bring into small towns, and we feel that X number of college graduates are getting employed in their hometown, it gives a sense of satisfaction. So I'll give you one example. We were looking for a few IT resources to be recruited in this town called Tirunelveli, which is
Mm-hmm.
deep south.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to reach the candidates. Now, the interesting part was people who were applying were all working with companies which are based in Chennai.
Okay.
And those companies wanted them to come back to Chennai. And they don't want to leave Tirunelveli, which is their hometown. So they had applied for the jobs which we posted, and because they want to be there along with
Mm-hmm.
their parents and relatives and friends, etc. And they're very happy with the kind of environment they have and the kind of salaries they get. So when you go to a town and start creating jobs, and when people call from the saying, I like to have a job here, especially women who find it difficult to migrate, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that gives us a sense of satisfaction in terms of how we drive it. So, well, everything else, the kind of work you do on building a startup, building the team, putting in the process, raising funds. But the fact that so far, we have been a catalyst to create more than 1,000 jobs in South India in small towns leaves a lot of sense of satisfaction amongst us. So that is the binding force which pushes us forward every day.
How did you get your first client? What were the initial days? How did you set up the first office space? And how did you, like you mentioned, the build and transfer model? How did you help them to hire the right talent in that city?
So first clients are always difficult. All of us know that, right? To start off with. So first 6 months was not easy in spite of having all our connects in the industry. And unfortunately, this was the time when the second wave had ended and the third wave of COVID had just begun. So there was a lot of uncertainty in the market as
Mhm.
to whether work from home will continue or should we bring them to office, etc. So the first 6 months was not easy. We spoke to a lot of clients. We evolved a model in that. Uh, we brought in the entire workforce support model, those conversations. And obviously, the first couple of 3, 4 clients we got through our connects. We built that beautifully. We wanted that to establish well. But post that, we were able to expand in a far more phenomenal way in the last 6 months because we got the formula right. We got few success cases. We also got to establish the process around which how we need to go ahead doing this. So first couple of clients were in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The first client we set up in Kochi, just for an Amsterdam-based client. And the other client we had set up in 4 cities in Tamil Nadu, which is Chengalpet, Salem, Trichy, and Madurai. So this was where we had, Coimbatore, rather, Madurai, where we put out. But after that, we started looking at far more deeper, engaging, a lot more conversation with prospect clients. And post April this year, when the market opened up after the third week of COVID, we saw some real traction coming in terms of the client interest, coupled with the facts of cost advantage of going towards small towns. And many startups and many small scale companies are finding it difficult to compete in the market of Bangalore and Chennai to attract talent. And for them, this was a very attractive solution whereby he said, we'll find you talent in these small towns and come over. And they were quite happy to do that. So that's been a good growth story for us in the last 6 months.
Got you. Uh, as a industry veteran, and as a founder in a space of office spaces, uh, can I ask you this popular question: the future of work? How will the future? How will the work look like in next 5 or 10 years time? Is it going to be all remote, or like you mentioned, the satellite offices, or will people be back to the usual way of metro cities? And China is moving. China had did that transition where a bulk of people moved to big cities and they are not coming back. So what would you say about India for next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think there are too many theories on that front by many people. But I can give you my view on that. Obviously, it isn't the best estimate of what can come in. But in our view, and I'm saying a collective of how we take it, uh, a distributed work model is here to stay. I don't think the earlier concept that we need to have everyone work out of some of those metros and Taiwan cities need to really prove correct in the long term. Uh, Pandemic changed that, as I said, the myth of that we need to be there. Number one. Number two, work from home has its own limitations, more from an angle of an employee fatigue of being there. The thin lines between work and home is kind of blurred, and especially women, they take the double load of work and home in that sense. So they all feel glad to go to some place to work, and that is not necessarily the home, but that is be nearby
Mm,
sense. The third one is people spending more time on travel to work is a big impact. And I stay in Bangalore,
mm,
and everybody knows that the Bangalore traffic is infamous for whatever reasons, and I struggle in terms of the travel time I take. Really unproductive in that sense. So there's a need for people not wanting to spend so much time on travel.
mm,
The fourth one is in the last few months, there's been enough debates about moonlighting, a lot of activities happening around people taking multiple jobs. But I feel today's youngsters, the way I see it, are quite different. Uh, they look at the value of work or what they contribute more important than a stability of a job.
mm,
They would like to see uh, their own growth, not just from a expertise point of view, but also the professional development more important than financial stability of a particular job in a reputed organization. They like to take risks in that sense. And in few years, I feel that you find a lot more youngsters open to work for multiple companies or projects uh, where they can not only learn but contribute than get tied up to one organization per se in terms of their growth and contribution. So uh, that is likely to happen more in India. I've already started seeing it. Uh, what we call the term, what we all call this is an entrepreneur in residence. He's an entrepreneur, but in residence of a company for a particular job, but he's not an employee.
right,
Okay, in that sense. Okay, so you'll find that a lot more happening, and the kind of people who are involved heavily into entrepreneurship today, especially the youngsters, and I attend many events, is quite encouraging in terms of risks they take. It's really compared to 20 years back, a far more encouraging site in terms of what they're up to do.
mm,
So I think the next future, if you look at, if India is looking at a 5 trillion economy, the growth is no more going to come from the metros. It will come from small towns. And that's already quite evident from the number of startups being incubated there from almost unheard of cities. The kind of ideas are which are coming from the kind of youngsters in those locations, and the risk-taking ability of that particular crowd in taking diverse initiatives for their
mm,
own value creation. So
right,
that's a change I would think what is going to come up.
yeah. Even the government is looking at the smaller cities, and there is a scheme around one district, one product, where the small towners, they need not go anywhere. They develop the skill set which is popular in their district or their native place. uh, like it happened in China, where they developed cities for semiconductors, for IT, for finance.
Mm.
They have a separate city for each of these things. So something similar is also happening in India. Having said that, I have a doubt around, like you said, uh, they the big companies, they are searching for smaller cities where there is a proximity around a particular type of talent, like let's say cloud developers. Lot of cloud developers are available in Coimbatore, so Coimbatore will become a small cloud development hub. But again, the future talents of Coimbatore, they'll probably try to become more and more cloud oriented, or they would prefer cloud computing or other skill sets. So will it be a challenge of the future, or how do you envision that thing happening?
So I think there will be a level of specialization definitely which will happen in various towns. And I can give already see some examples like you quoted that few cities are encouraged for, semiconductors, a few cities are being encouraged for cloud computing, a few cities are being encouraged for drone
Yeah.
technologies, etc. And you're right, many state governments have come up with various policies to encourage small towns to be developed. I live in Karnataka, and for sure, I know the government of Karnataka has brought in a policy itself called Beyond Bangalore, okay, which means taking work beyond Bangalore to various clusters in the state and encouraging companies through financial incentives to move work there. And that itself is a very encouraging side coming in. I'm sure there are various other governments doing that. But uh, I don't think there'll be too much of specialization happening, even if you call it. For example, Bangalore has been called the Silicon Valley of India for quite many years, right? But doesn't mean other cities didn't pick up technology hubs. They all did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay? Chennai has its own tech space, tech industry. We have many other cities in India which picked up beyond Bangalore after the initial 20, when I talk about initial few years, I'm talking about 20, 25 years back.
Mm.
So while it does happen, and invariably there are a few sectors where there'll be some focus, like Bangalore was tech, Chennai was more of a banking back office hub, which
Mm.
happened. Hyderabad was competing on technology development. Some of the voice-based work went to Noida and Gurgaon. Mumbai was more of a financial services hub. It just naturally evolved and happened in that sense, right? But there was always opportunities everywhere. In that way, you will see certain small towns like Coimbatore or Mysore, for example, which is being pitched as a semiconductor hub, Coimbatore on cloud. Uh, those will evolve, but that doesn't mean others don't have a kind of place in the whole scheme of things. It'll always be a mix of talent coming in, while that particular town may be known for a kind of work which is prominent. They'll start doing a lot more than that. That's my take on it.
Gotcha. What are the challenges of running a unique business model like yours? Of course, you mentioned COVID was a big challenge, but from a logistic point of view, uh, from a tactical point of view, what are the day-to-day challenges?
Well, like any other business which you run, we do encounter the same day-to-day challenges of meeting client demands, having people issues, controlling cost, uh, reviewing top line, etc. But for us, the biggest challenge in our business, as I say, where I say bringing work towards small towns, is our continuing effort to convince some of the larger players,
Hmm.
okay, in the industry today uh, to move work to small towns. Some companies historically have taken very early steps in doing that. Some of the IT companies in India. Years back, they spread their development into many, many towns. Many have not done that, but we feel they can do more and they can be the torchbearers of this effort. But so far, I've not seen it. A lot of what I call MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, have taken a giant leap towards bringing work closer to hometowns. The larger companies in India, especially in the IT and ITS sector, I believe can do a lot more. But there's a wait and watch because they believe that currently they have the infrastructure and the people in metros. They're not in a hurry to do that. But the challenge I see is they may be pushed to do that at some point of time. Better take that step far before than getting pushed to do that. And for us, we continue the conversations with them to convince them that this model is long term and do it. And we'll continue until we are able to convince them in the near future.
Got you. My final question for you: what would you say is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur, or who is an entrepreneur as per you?
Somebody who strives to do what he believes is right for a sense of fulfillment, because that has to come within, right? It's easy to work, but I've seen the both the worlds work for many years and I've started doing. And uh, you don't give in to the kind of risks and pressures what you have, and able to live a dream and fulfill that dream, and takes probably a lot of effort, uh, persistence to get there. And one has to continue to focus on that, the vision of what you have, persuade a lot of people, convince a lot of people, and lead the way in terms of articulating the vision, and so taking all concrete steps to achieve the vision. That's the difference what I see in entrepreneur.
Well, thanks for your time, Santosh, and it was a great pleasure to have you on our platform.
Sure. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conversation. And thank you, ELI, for this opportunity for Mikro Grafeio, and hope to be connected again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Santosh.